And last week she talked a lot about signs of someone who might be headed for relapse, and she's going to continue on that vein.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today again. So, there's no doubt that, in recovery, you're going to have periods of darkness. I experience darkness myself. What you have to do, though, is not stay stuck in that darkness. And so, with relapse, it doesn't, people sometimes will say they think that that has to be part of your recovery journey, and it doesn't. You don't have to relapse. And so, I just wanted to talk. Last week, I did talk about like the three stages of the relapse: the emotional, the mental, and then the physical part. And then there's also like 11 steps that kind of just twiddle down to the 11th step, and that's that physical part of using. So I just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that, and it kind of just goes along with the stages, but just a little bit more, just down the line. And so the unhealthy emotions, just not being able to cope with the emotional stress. And I find that I can see how people can easily relapse by not being able to cope with emotions. And I always have to tell myself, like, feelings that I'm feelings, it's not always facts.
Yeah.
And they will go away. You know what I mean? So, and you have to not be in denial, to not ask for help. You have to ask for help. Sometimes I have a hard time with asking for help, but I also, in the same breath though, I do utilize my support, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
And the tools that you've learned.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, you have to, you can't just sit there and convince yourself that you're not feeling and that you're not heading towards a relapse. You got to kind of open up your eyes, you know what I mean, and realize what these signs in your life are telling you, so you can prevent that from happening. Number 3 would be that compulsive behavior. You still do not want to take drugs or alcohol, but you're doing other behaviors such as overworking, over-exercising, or starting addictive relationships. And oh my goodness. I've had to set myself down and have a talk with myself, if that makes any sense, and kind of process the trying not to overwork.
Yeah.
Instead of,
And that's hard for you.
It is hard for me.
Because you have a strong sense of responsibility.
yes,
And so at your job, you pick up the slack for
Yes.
anyone else who isn't there, or even some of the people who are there that maybe aren't pulling their weight.
right.
And you can work yourself to death.
And I do some weeks. So I'm like, oh, I need to stop that. Number 4 would be them triggers. And it says like something happens, usually involving other people, places, or situations that remind you of drugs. But because now we have unhealthy emotions and denial and compulsive behaviors, because these are just kind of going along together. They're just going, clamping onto each other and going hand in hand.
And rolling down the
yes,
hill.
yes, and these triggers have more weight than they would normally, and you add the turmoil that you're going through, and you're just heading for trouble.
Yeah.
And so the interior chaos, the trigger now has caused internal chaos, where you're thinking about doing drugs and alcohol again. And I think at some point in everyone's recovery, you do kind of go have them thoughts. It's very important not to entertain them, though.
Yeah.
But I
Or
believe,
or think it through.
Right,
Think
right.
through to, well, what happened to me when I did it the last time?
Right. And I guarantee you, at the end of the day, just relapse is not the answer. Recovery is a beautiful thing. I feel like it's a blessing and a gift. And the tools that we receive and get throughout our journey, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that. Just being part of the program, a 12-step program. And so moving forward, the external turmoil, we start fights or arguments with family or coworkers. We may even at this point don't even want to be involved with the 12-step program of your choosing. And we're beginning now to reject any help because right now mentally you're already
You're
you
heading
know
that
you're
way.
you're getting your mind made up that you're going to go ahead and use. You're just setting things up. And then number 7 is like that loss of control. And that's where the many problems begin to pile up. And now you're just saying this is because of everything. You're just losing control. Everything's wrong. And I don't like to be in that mind frame. I remember using and being in that active addiction. I didn't have no control. Everything was out of control. Everything was wrong, which really it was.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember how things used to be for me in my active addiction, and I don't want to feel like that anymore, ever. And then number 8 is that addictive thinking, actually thinking that recovery's not working.
Yeah.
You're really in a red flag zone right now at this point. If you really think that recovery is not working, that it's not for you, that it's a waste of your time, you're really in trouble because for me, recovery is the best thing that has happened to me, even though I wasn't active in my addiction all my life.
Right.
But the things that I have gained now, the tools that I've gotten in recovery, just even spiritually, on a different level, spiritually, emotionally, I feel like I'm a better person even before the drugs.
Yeah.
And so at this point, there's probably nothing that's going to stop you from using. The high risk situations, and that's when you're just literally you're seeking out people that are active in their addiction, because then
Yeah.
it's easy access. You're going to them old places. You might even be hanging out at a bar. You might not be drinking yet, but you're on
close.
your way.
Yeah. But you're close.
And then by the time we hit that 10th step, and that's when you literally you do the relapse part of it. And then that 11th, the aftermath of the relapse, and that's when some people do realize they made a mistake, and they don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
And I've always been a firm believer into this quote that Les Brown said. I was listening to him one day, almost 3 years ago, and he said, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great. And so I take that as, okay, if you fall and bump your head, okay, at least get started on something so
Yeah.
you can end up, being successful at it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Get back on your feet.
Yes.
And because second chances are still.
a second chance.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's viable.
Yes.
So.